Hello. Check, check, check. Give me just a second here. Okay, so here's what's up. Here's where we're at. I had some time off for the holidays, and then I got sick, which kind of sucked. But basically, I'm better now. Gonna do this stream that I was supposed to do about a week ago, but I was horribly ill with the flu. So I'm gonna do it now. We're in the home stretch of the mentoring class that I'm doing on the character design, which I think's gone okay so far. I've got opinions on both sides of it, but I think people overall have been very responsive. If I do another one, I've got some things I'm definitely going to improve on my end, but this went well. So I'm going to scroll down to the last video I put up, which is here, and I'm going to talk about everything after this in terms of the morganes, and then I'm going to talk about the last character and the kind of time frame we're on. So I'm going to start with Skeptical. Let's see. Apologies here while I look at this. I've been looking at these off and on throughout the week, but want to talk about everything. So some of the stuff I talked about before is still kind of here. I still think the hat is awkward. I see the reference you've provided down here. You know, it's kind of like a weird sombrero looking sort of thing. It's very flat and it wraps around the head, and it's got this really cool kind of poncho style cloth coming out of it. The one you have up here looks kind of like a pillow or something. I'm not sure how to talk. It looks like it's been stuffed. It doesn't look like the hat you provided a reference for. So I know one of my complaints before was that this felt kind of awkward. The hat didn't really seem to work. And I still don't think the hat works. It looks really, really big. I wasn't going to do any Photoshop stuff, but I'm going to do some. This always happens. I say I'm not gonna, and then I'm like, you know what? You know what? Why not? Hi, everybody. Bear with me, being unprofessional as always. My throat's a little closed up still. But, you know, if I'm zooming in on this hat, and I'm looking at, like, the reference you provided down here, this lady. Let's pull this down here. Got your reference sheet. Now, if I don't do a paint over of one of your things, or I don't crit you in depth, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go through this. But here's the thing about this lady, and I'm just gonna point this out here. I mentioned this before, but it doesn't seem to be sinking in, so I'm gonna try and just manually show you. Let me grab a bright red for a correction layer. Yes, this is live. So here's the skeleton of your character as a stick figure. You've got the hip about here. You've got the torso here. You've got one arm here with a shoulder there. And then presumably the shoulder should be here, but it's way up here, which means the elbow's there. Do you see what I'm saying about this huge mass over here? I mentioned this before, but it makes her look hunchbacked. And then her head's only about this big. But this is how you could have fixed it. I'm just going to show you real quick. This shoulder pad thing is fine, but what it should be brought down here so it looks like it's resting in perspective where her arm is falling. Some light from the side catching on it. There's going to be quick scribbles. This should be here. You should bring in everything on this arm completely. Pull it in, because it's just, it's sticking out so far that it's making it look hunchbacked. Pull the cape in. Erase this old one. Get it out of there. You might hear my turtle scratching around in the background. He's being lively tonight. I would bring in the waist a bit and show more of this back arm. But you get it. I think you get it. Now the other thing, her feet are very close together. When I put that wireframe on, it just looks kind of awkward. I think you should pop the feet out a bit to give it a bit more power. I have one foot down here. I have another foot over here. You know, just spreading the feet apart a bit can give the stance a lot more weight. A lot more power. You could push them out even farther than I have, honestly. And again, this is just a quick paint over. It's going to look a little shitty because I'm not going to really take time to polish. I'm just showing you big surgery changes. But, you know, if she's being backlit, which it looks like she is, there should be some light down here, you know, kind of coming through. There should be some light over here and some light over here to kind of show, you know, there won't be, if she's being backlit, which means the light source is back here in the distance coming forward, then the shadow is going to be coming towards us. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But that means you got to give us more of a hint that the light's actually doing this sort of thing. Well, it should actually help compositionally too. It'll make it more about shapes. You can lead the eye in with a cool kind of diagonal of light down here. See how that pulls the eye in nicely down in the corner. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, she's being kind of underlit from the side too. I'm not sure what's casting that light up, but you can make that more apparent over here as well. This kind of glow. You can bump that up a bit. That's fine. But yeah. In terms of the hat, let's see. So in terms of this hat and her face is very squished. I can see that you're kind of showing the cloth in that lady's thing, but you should really lighten it up a bit and really show us those awesome cultural patterns. You know, make it more triangular, slope it. Basically just pull more from the reference you have, because it's a really nice reference. I had never seen one of these headdresses before, but it's a really cool piece of clothing. But see, on the reference, it sits on her head. It wraps around the head like every hat should and does. Yours is on top of her head. What I mean by that is, this is the top of her head, and this is the beginning of the hat. They're separated, which doesn't make sense. It should be on her head, around it, not just resting on it. So, I would pull the hat down. And there's something else you can do to make it part of the head really easily too. I'm going to talk about in a second. The hat has to be flatter because it's just huge right now. It looks like a big kind of sausage just resting on her head. So it doesn't really work. I think you're just not understanding what's in the reference, which is fine. That happens to a lot of people. They kind of try to copy what they see, but they don't understand the shape of the thing they're looking at when they're copying it. I know that happens to me a lot. I'll think I'm being accurate to the reference, but then I'll realize, oh wait, that form is tapering into the distance, but the black and white camera doesn't really express that. I thought it was a triangle, but it's actually a square going back in space. I didn't see that. Or, you know, in the case of this thing, it's actually a rounded thing that bowls down in the front, and then the black parts you're seeing aren't in outline. It's the part in shadow wrapping around the back of the head. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do as far as the design of this hat goes, but I'm just going to show you the form of it, how it sits. It's more like this. Here's the rim. Here's the front. And then in the back, there'd probably be some bounce light because of that light source. But in the back, this is all in the back. Take this down a notch. some more light from the background in here. But this is the shape of the hat. I would assume it would be kind of the same red she has. Another big thing with this piece is the, I'm not going to get into it just because I need to move on, but the values are all very, very dark. This could have a lot more life in it if you know, were willing to shed a little bit more light onto parts of it, like over here, up here, over here, in there. You know, there could be a lot more light in this piece. You're sinking into black very, very quickly, and it's kind of sucking a lot of the opportunity out of it. Okay, so here's the top of the hat over here. I'll do this real quick. And then one thing you could do, because you had this kind of disc thing on her shoulder with the carvings in it, which I like, that's not repeated anywhere, so it stands out really badly right now. A good place to repeat it, based on the reference that you provided, would be hanging from her hat. It looks like there was a pendant kind of here, then it looks like some smaller, almost gypsy-style coin pieces on the sides, and then little trinkets hanging from the top. That's a really good place to bring that kind of carved stone or dull metal idea back into it. You can have the silhouettes of some hanging in the back. But yeah. So let's see. Now, I mentioned the face is kind of scrunched. This is just an anatomy thing. I'm not sure what you're using in terms of a reference. I saw you showed a reference for the underlighting, but the face just isn't wide enough, and it's very, very skewed. I'm not going to have time to totally fix this. But basically, you need to either post somebody you know or get a reference of somebody in this angle. But your face is skewed and it's way too thin. That's what's making it look kind of weird. Good job trying to do that underlighting. That's a tough thing to do. And it's cool that you took that initiative. A lot of people shy away from that kind of dynamic lighting stuff in lieu of a more flat, basic sort of thing. Let's see. Just based on the reference you provided, it's like, you know, why wouldn't she have one of those sweet necklaces here to break up some of that black? Anywhere where the black is starting to become a huge shape and not a form, I think you need to either add light or rethink your design of the costume, because there's just too much black. And again, I'm not going to be doing paint overs for everybody, but the pieces that I feel like need some major surgery, I might come in and do a paint over today. But yeah, it's like, you know, looking at that reference, there's a whole lot of cool little cultural nods you could do based on that lady's hat. Again, which I've never seen one of those hats before, but they look pretty cool. Let's see. The whole body is kind of skewed in different directions on either side. If this had started with like a really tight anatomy drawing first, which is something I've been telling everybody to do, a lot of these problems could have been fixed, making sure the body works before you put the costume on it. When I say start with a drawing, I don't mean start with a broken drawing. I mean draw the body till it looks correct, and only then move forward. There's no point in drawing a body, having it be broken, and then being like, well, I drew a body. Dan said to draw a body. Guess I'll go forward. Draw the body till it's correct, or as correct as you can get it for your skill level. I'm going to zoom out here, take a look. And again, I don't think this is a bad design. I think you're doing pretty cool stuff. I just think that it needs some tweaking. So, but you see what I mean by doing that, especially the hunchback part? Let me zoom in a little bit. that shoulder was causing this right here made no sense at all to me. I talked about that last time too. I don't know if you just didn't know how to address it or what, but this right here is just like she's got some kind of protrusion in her body or her shoulder is broken. But you got to pull that in because she's a girl. You know, you don't want her to look like the silhouette of some kind of big monster or ogre looking thing. You want it to read as, oh, you know, this is a woman. Sure, she's wearing a lot of layers, but it's a woman. Another thing I think you could do, the last thing probably, you've got this very kind of white belt here, and then you've got this white fur at the top. That needs to come back somewhere else. I wouldn't do it on the cape, but I would do it on the bottom of her dress. If it's only at the top, if all the whites are only at the top, then the bottom of the character sinks into kind of uselessness. The eye doesn't want to go there at all. Nothing exciting's happening because that color balance isn't there. When I say color balance, I mean a balance of the colors on the canvas, not the Photoshop command. But yeah, you know, if there's a lot of a color only in one place, it upsets the eye. These snake patterns are cool. I like that. The sides look a little empty. I think you could, you know, just add some very basic, like, triangles or something. Whatever works. Little tongue on the snake. But yeah, again, I don't think this is a bad design. I think this is the makings of a really cool design that you just need to spend some more time on. You know, things like upsetting the symmetry. I see these sashes you have up here that are all wrapped into each other. Why not have another one down here? Have another two. Have this sash right here continue under that belt to break up that straight white line. That straight white line sucking a lot of life out of what could be a really cool series of layers. So now we've got this layered cloth here. You know, there's that. And then, you know, what if the cloth is folded under itself or tied? Then we can have, like, you know, a big one here. And it can hang kind of in the middle with some tassels that come down. And that could be the thing that's wrapped around her waist. It could be this big kind of long cloth or scarf. You know, just anything to add interest. It's not random because this is a cloth culture. You've clearly shown that. And she's dressing in layers. So any opportunity to make the cloth make sense, because she doesn't have any buttons on her. That's the thing. So that means all the cloth has to be tied. This is just stuff that people don't usually think about when they're drawing these kind of cultural costumes. If she doesn't have any buttons or fasteners or things like that, that means all the cloth is held together with knots and wraps. So show us some knots and wraps. If this red with the designs in it is here, and I see it again right around the waist, without thinking, my eye puts that together and says, oh, to hold her thing in place, she wrapped it around her waist and the excess cloth is tucked under it like a tie. You know, it's just basic stuff that people don't usually consider. But this is the difference between a cool design that makes sense and a random design that doesn't. So this was all sinking into black. I added some more color here, just a little bit of light, just to show the edge of this dress. A little bit of the red coming through to show that these are wrapped up around. You don't want them to just disappear. Can everybody hear me okay? Not seeing a lot in the chat, so I just want to make sure. But see how the bottom before just sank into nothing? There's just nothing down there. No visual interest. Now it's a little more balanced. And it doesn't look like she's wearing a huge inflatable balloon on her head. Bringing that hat down so it's actually wrapped around the head is a big part of this. I hope this is making sense to everybody watching. I don't know if the person who did this piece is actually in the chat right now because I'm streaming a little later than I usually do. But hopefully this is making sense to people. And again, if you're going to have that bounced red light, it has to catch on everything that's turned towards it. Anywhere that that light would catch, you got to show me. Lighting is a universal thing. It's not just in one spot. If you've got a bounce light coming up from the side, it's going to hit everything that's turned towards that side. And this is going to make your character brighter. It's going to eliminate a lot of the blacks that this piece is sinking into, so it's going to help your values. You know, just getting your lighting down basically improves everything. It's one of the most important things in your piece, and it's one of the hardest things to understand. Almost everyone I know who does concept art and illustration, still to this day, even the pros that I know, they struggle with lighting incredibly. A lot of people fudge it. A lot of people just make it up. A lot of people rely on tricks. So they just do a lot of bounce light, stuff like that. A lot of complementary color just because it's complementary. But they don't understand how the lighting works. I definitely have a hard time with it. But, you know, don't get down on yourself if lighting's a place where you struggle. That's one of the most common areas where people fall apart in their pieces, is not understanding how to universally light it. So I'm bringing this rope in around the waist because it was kind of jumping off into space on the side. If this is the waist, if this is the edge, then that rope shouldn't come out to over here. Makes no sense. Bringing this scarf in. But yeah, so let's see. Now, let's see, I've done a lot already. I don't want to spend too long because I do have to move on, but I know you've been having a hard time with this piece, and I just want to give some serious input because I see you trying, and you deserve the feedback. Everybody deserves feedback, and I apologize that I can't give it to everybody. There's so many, I didn't expect so many people to follow along in this class. It's really awesome, and I'm really happy that you guys are doing it. I just didn't expect it. I can't effectively teach this many people, is what I'm trying to say. So I gotta kind of pick and choose here and there. Let's see. Putting some light on that foot will definitely help unify the lighting. Wrapping this around. The last thing, or the last two things, this arm is kind of awkwardly, just kind of, I'm gonna do another layer on top. If you look at this arm, grab a bright yellow. If you look at this arm, you draw through it. The elbow's here, the shoulder's here, the edge of the chest is here, and the arm is like directly parallel to the chest. It's very kind of cocked back, like she's fist pumping. Like, yeah! But like, it just kind of makes this very weird angle that doesn't work with the pose of the body. I like what you've done with the hand, but my suggestion would be, hold on while I select this out. I'm going to move the hand over. And down a bit. So, I just want to make sure I don't fudge this. I would have the arm working towards more of a triangle, like the other arm. You know, because this piece is very triangular because of how you've done the cape. I would play up that shape and not make this such a sudden jerky thing. I would show more of this arm over here and have the sleeve come out so it's more gradual. And it can still look evil. You can still go for that, you know, kind of claw thing you were going for. Show the underside of this, there, wrapping around. Bring this down a bit too. Those feather things got to be a lot darker at the top. The edges can really catch the light, but they got to be a little darker in the middle. Now this is still awkward because of how you drew the hand. You're going to have to turn the hand towards us a bit more because it's kind of bent away right now. But, you know. But anyway, like I said, it's a quick paint over. It's not going to be perfect. I'm just trying to show you some design stuff to strengthen what you have. There's lots of other issues in here I could talk about in terms of the body perspective and how the clothing is laying. But I want you to look at the design first and foremost right now. But yeah, that hand has to come in now that we've moved it. So I'm going to do that real quick. Yeah, you're gonna have to redraw the hand to do this because of the perspective change. But just in terms of the triangle shape of the piece. But anyway, I'm gonna move on. But just to show you, like, you know, it's just about the silhouette, really. Getting the silhouette to read and then working on the design. That big hump on the side being gone is a huge improvement. But anyway, hope you understand that. Hope that makes sense. Yeah. Moving on. There's more of this later, so I'm not gonna... Actually, I should really be working from the last page like I did before, so I'm gonna jump ahead to the last page. J-Mob. Let's see. This is looking pretty cool. Does anyone know the culture of this? I'm not totally sure on the culture. I've got a couple ideas. It's Arab. Is it Arab? Having a hard time. Let me jump onto previous page here and see if I can take a look at it early on before I start critting it and not having the accurate info. Egyptian. Okay. Egyptian. Well, this does not look Egyptian. And I know that that is disheartening, but I have to be honest. I thought it was maybe some kind of tribe culture based on all the hanging feathers. Uh, she's got white hair, which does not make sense for ancient Egypt at all. Um, Pushing the past the Egyptian stereotype is an admirable thing, but this looks like a combination of high seas pirate and tribe culture. It's got this big kind of coat thing, which Egyptians didn't really wear coats because it's the desert. And then it's got these very bits and bobs and hanging feathers and things like that, which makes it look very Native American or tribal or Mongolian. Uh, let's see. Basically, the big things to change. I can't really paint over this because I'd have to change everything. I like the pose, and I like the face, and I like the feel, but the costume is not Egyptian. It just doesn't read as Egyptian. I don't think anyone who saw this without this symbol in the corner would guess that it was Egyptian. Too much emphasis on feathers and things, not enough emphasis on what Egypt was about, which was, very geometric shapes, a lot of stone, a lot of precious metals that they pulled out of caves and mining in deserts, a lot of jade, a lot of stuff like that. The color palette isn't really Egyptian. It's, her skin isn't very dark at all. She looks extremely pale. The hair is white, which, unless she's an albino, which doesn't really make sense because she'd have to look like an African who's albino, not a Caucasian woman. Yeah. So basically, you just got to redo the costume, and I hate saying that, but it's just not Egyptian. Pushing past stereotypes is an admirable pursuit, but you can't push too far past them, or you're not in the ballpark of the stereotype anymore. If you don't want something to look Egyptian, but it has to still be in Egypt, there's only so much you can do before it's just a random thing. I'm not really seeing any uniform design, and I think that's a big part of it. It looks like they're all mismatched parts of different things layered on top of one another, so I don't get an overall feel of this is the culture this is from. Because, I see this shoulder that doesn't really make sense, and then she's got stuff wrapped around her arm, and then she's got bandages, and then she's got two things wrapped around her breasts, and then she's got a sash, and then feathers, and then another sash, and then another sash, and then a coat sash, and then a cape, no legs, a giant spear. I mean, when I saw this, I thought maybe it was Viking tribe kind of thing. It had kind of a feel of like the morgane or like a Gaelic kind of feel, but it's somewhere in between that hill tribes, Vikings sort of pre-Christian Europe, and it's sort of a Native American, maybe kind of Middle Ages Mexican. It's like those things. But yeah, definitely not Egypt. Definitely parts of Europe and the pre-colonial Americas. Sorry. I feel bad saying that. I feel bad saying it. Yeah, that's the thing. The term I would use for this design is sort of. You've thrown in so much random stuff without a uniform core design that it looks like a lot of different things. It could be Spanish. It could be kind of Italian based on the coats. It could be a number of things. It's not any one thing. It's a bunch of random things. That's what you got to watch out for in a design. Here's Thomas's Mordred. We're not critting the Mordreds yet, though. So, I'm going to breeze past it because the Mordreds aren't due for a bit longer. Let's see. I talked to Marius the other day. I think he's going with number 8. So I'm going to pull this down here real quick. Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'm going to say about that Egyptian character is that if you're going to do something from Egypt, you have to throw at least one thing on it that's Egyptian, or at least feels Egyptian, or a pattern that's Egyptian, or a shape. If you're doing Egypt and you want to avoid a stereotype so you don't put anything Egyptian on it, it's like, how am I supposed to know? You know what I mean? There's only so much you can do. Now, Mattias, I liked your number 7 a lot, and I know I said to do your number 8 because I think that one was stronger. But there's elements of the number 7 that I think you should keep. I didn't want to get too much into it on Facebook because I didn't want to cloud your comments. But things I like in this one is this scarf around her neck. I like the dark shapes. I like moving it away from the red because Arthur's primarily red and everybody's... I don't remember your Arthur particularly. I've seen too many of them. But I like this dark color. It's very obvious, but it works as long as you make it cool. You know, black, she's evil, she's the crow lady. You know, it's like all that stuff works as long as you balance it out with a good design. There's no problem with being, you know, this is obviously the bad guy. There's no problem with that in terms of games and movies. They'll usually ask for it. So, go over the top. You know, make the hair look like some kind of wing or tattered feathers. You know, like get that negative read in there. Have the cloak be a little unkempt. You know what I mean? Add some danger to it. Things I think you should keep from the other design. I don't think the white works. I do think you should keep that red. Let me pull this back in. Because she is associated with, you know, the red dragon kind of thing. Because that is like her sigil and what her character's all about. You know, that's what this class is all about, is working the story into the design. I want you to keep that red in a few places. I'm going to show you what I mean. So here's the 2 I really liked. Let's grab this red here. I think a dark red down here would look good. This dark color here I think should come back in a few places. You need to show the outline of her body more. It needs to catch more light because of the cape. If it sinks too much into the cape, then she's going to disappear really fast. Other things I liked from the other one was this kind of diagonal wrap you had. I'm going to pull that back in because I thought that was a really cool design element. So now she's got like this wrap that goes around her body that is part of the dress that's hanging around her feet, but she's wearing that very dark, like blood crimson underneath it, and then the blackish cape. I think that's really cool. It's a cool layering. If you have 2 that stand out in a series that you did of thumbnails, there's no problem in combining a couple. Or the successful elements of a couple. Like, these worked really well. Remind me again the exact culture you're going for. Because I'm pretty sure I know what it is based on this. I just want to make absolutely sure. Because sometimes I think people are doing one thing, and it looks obvious to me that they're doing one thing, but then I find out it's something else. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And then I feel like a dick for critting them wrong. Yeah, okay, good. India, thought so. So one thing, if she's Indian, her skin shouldn't be Caucasian. You know, just saying it. I'm just getting it out there. She should have darker skin. The darker skin will bring out the reds and oranges in the design a lot. It'll make the colors a lot richer if she has that darker complexion to match them. This thing over here felt kind of random. I'm sure you're trying to go for like a coin belt, right? I thought that's what it was supposed to be. The more simple one you had on the other one reads a bit better. And then the headdress worked really well. One of those kind of things. Other things you could do. She should have something on her arm over here with, you know, stones or something in it. Something. Maybe a bracer. An armlet. But yeah, I mean, if I just go to Google and I'm like, Indian dress woman, you know, instantly tons of stuff you could use. It's like, let's grab that. You know, there's no shame in pulling from obvious reference if it helps the design. Let's grab that. I'm just gonna grab a couple. Let's grab this. And let's grab this. No shame in doing this if it helps the design. So, okay, we've got that, this over here, and this one. So just from these, there's all kinds of stuff that I now want to do to your character. All kinds of things I can see for improving it. I'm going to keep your basic idea in place. I just want to show you like how fast you can make this more exciting. So I'm seeing that you've got this diagonal swoop thing, and I'm seeing a reference kind of thing for it in that woman, but it's got like really cool silver trim. So I'm like, oh, okay, you could do some like kind of scale-ish, quick silver lining in it to play off the dragon serpent idea. You could even embroider a snake kind of thing into it. You know, now I really want you to kick the silhouette of her body up, play off the curve, really show that. Really show that. Pull this in. Something hanging and flowing from the side, around the arm maybe. Transparent cloth. You know, having the dress be red, but then having the parts that are hanging be pink, because the canvas is white behind it. I did say I didn't want a white canvas, by the way, back in the beginning. That hurts your design a lot. But then you could show patterns through the pink. You know, this kind of stuff. There's all kinds of shit. The hair hanging. Taking that silver, bringing it back into the trim down here. You know, just livening up the design with stuff from the culture. Bringing the scale idea back or something like that. Again, it doesn't have to be what I'm doing. I'm just showing you examples of how to bring a little more life to it. A little more nod of the culture. Just a little more excitement for the person who sees it. So now the idea I'm getting is that she had really nice clothes, but they're starting to fall apart because she's from a ruined house. So again, you can do like, you know, some stains on the dress, some rips in the cloak, all kinds of cool stuff. Looks like she's wearing I should say holding a staff of some kind. What was your idea for that straight line? What was it going to be? What was it gonna be? Staff? Okay. The anatomy, everything's good except one part, and it's this hand. I would bring the hand down, and I would show more of the arm coming out to it. Right now it's hugging too close to the body, and it's making the piece feel kind of claustrophobic. So I would show a little bit of the shoulder, some of the arm over here, and then, you know, having it come down to the hand and pulling the staff more over here. Now, because her body is tapering, can you see that if you follow my mouse? Her body's on a diagonal, so the staff shouldn't be parallel. If she's using the staff the way a normal person uses a staff, She's using it to hold her body up and support her weight. So I'm going to make it straight. Its weight is going to be square on the ground. You can add a bit of a counter tilt to it, actually. Would probably be the best thing to do. To widen that, do a double triangle kind of thing. There you go. Gaps in the hair showing behind it. So now you've got, and again, you could widen it even more. You could kick her hand out even farther to the side. But what I'm trying to show you, I'll do it in a bright green this time, is now her body is inside of a triangle here. And then you've got the same triangle caused by the staff and the outkick of the hand. So it's an isosceles triangle intersecting another one. It's a double diamond kind of thing. Adds a lot more power to the design. Does that make sense? Adds a lot more weight to the design. So again, shapes and shape intersections, big deal. You could have like, you know, don't have it just be black. You could have like, you know, there used to be a pattern in it or something. What else? I think you should really play up the headdress. I think there's a lot of potential there. And the face. The face needs a lot of work. It's extremely skewed. Just grab a reference. Either photograph a female friend of yours and then change the features to Indian, or go grab a photo and study it and then try to apply what you learned. The face should be wider though. The features should be less squished. A big thing in Indian culture, again, I'm a huge fan of Indian, Persian, Middle Eastern, everything in that stretch of the continent. All that design is my favorite. I know a lot about it. It's my favorite stuff to work with. Everything about the woman's face in this culture, Indian, is about the curves of the face. So just very quickly to show you what I mean, you have, this is usually the hair. It's two curves, very round, half circle, central shapes. That's the hairline. Then you've got these very painted in, because they use dye, these kind of women, these very painted in, curved down, sultry eyelashes. They're painted in that shape for a reason. It's because it's the appealing, seductive kind of shape. Then you've got either the turned down counter curve of the very thick eyelashes, or the eyes are open and then they kind of mimic the eyebrow. And then you've got the painted lips, which curve up and mimic the hair. And then the bottom one, which mimics the eyelash. I hope that makes sense, but everything in their face, how they paint the face, everything about it is based on these very, very seductive curves. And they all kind of echo each other. So it's this, these. Extremely, they accentuate the features of the female face. They kind of exaggerate them to a kind of perfect point. You know, like everybody says, like, you know, a good painting, like a Frazetta painting is good because it exaggerates the right things to their maximum level of interest. That's exactly what they do when they paint the faces this way and dress them up. It exaggerates all the feminine features of the female face to a point where it's at its highest peak of attraction. So bring that in. If you want to have her eyes open, make them a lot darker where the eyelash is. Curve those eyebrows in. You know, darken the lips. And there's another time-tested rule in painting women's faces that a lot of people don't realize. Every line you put on a woman's face in a painting adds another year of age. Or like 10 years of age, I should say. So if you do like a big line coming out of like the nose down to the mouth like you had, instantly she's 50 instead of 20. You know what I mean? Those lines add a lot of age. You want it to be very smooth. You want to paint with form and not line, especially on females. It's about the tapering curves of the form. It's not about, here's a bunch of lines to carve out the face. Hey Ben, what's up? But yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna move on in a minute, but you could show, like, she's got some jewelry underneath this scarf. Oh, right, and she's wearing a scarf. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna do something else in a minute. She's got some jewelry under here. It's kind of maybe show a ring around the neck, like she's wearing one of those necklaces that starts up high and then falls down into coins between the cleavage. Those are really cool. Something hanging in the middle of her head to break up the symmetry. Little gold pendant. The hanging kind of third eye look. You want to taper the head to make it look like she's human. Now that I've widened the head, you gotta widen the top of it too. But yeah, her complexion has to be a lot darker. I already mentioned that. But, okay, let me zoom out here. I hope this is making sense, Marius. I want it to make sense. Okay, she's got this scarf, but the scarf doesn't make sense to turn into a cape. So that would, that would make me assume that the scarf has to end up somewhere. What I would do is probably have it, it has to be off to one side. I'm gonna put it over here for now. You could have it kicked off on the other side too. But because she's raised her arm and her arm's coming out, I'm going to say that the flow of the scarf went this way with her hand. And it's going to be a black scarf. It's going to be kind of transparent, kind of silky. And then it has gold trim on it. So I'm going to bring the gold in, work the designs. You want to make sure the person realizes that this is a continuation of this. You want to make sure they understand that one is becoming the other behind her body. And then, kick out the red dress a bit more. But anyway, yeah, those are the big things. I don't know what you're planning on doing for the top of the staff. It's going to need some gold somewhere just to balance out the gold you've put on her body. I don't know what kind of shape you want to give it. That's up to you. I don't want to infect your design too much. But, yeah. Anyway, I'll stop now. But, see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? The flowing scarves add a really cool visual metaphor for she's a mystic, she's magic. You've got the really fine clothes, but there's some stains and tatters. So it's like, oh, is she rich or is she kind of in the shit? She's got the unkempt hair, the unkempt hair. She's got the staff. She's got the very seductive features and the curves in the face. You have to make her skin darker. But yeah, so, I don't know. It's just, it's taking what you had in your original two designs, which are these 7 and 8, combining the best parts of both of them, and then enhancing them. But you see, 90% of everything in what I just did came from you. The jewelry, the red sash, the staff, the headdress, the necklace, all this was stuff that you did. I just enhanced it and I combined it. But there you go. Hope that helps. I'm going to move on. Okay. I'm not doing the Mordreds yet, but I really like this, P-Tim. I just want you to know when I do get to the Mordreds, this is looking real good. You should have part of the stick coming out of the top of the axe. It makes no sense to have the blade do that without a continuation of that spear poking through. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going. See, I can kind of see the Egypt in this, but I can't see it in this. I can see it in the wrapped wing patterns you have here, but then they're completely lost in this. And it becomes this kind of, this almost looks Spanish. This looks kind of like Italian or Spanish. And then the other one looked very Nordic. But this one looks kind of Egyptian. This was closer to the mark. Thomas. Milan. I like Milan's Mordred a lot. But we're not talking about the Mordreds. Not yet. Let's go through here. Okay. Here we go. M-O-Y. Still don't know how to say your name, buddy. M-O-Y. M-O-Y. Let me pull it into Photoshop. Okay. The one thing about this that's turning me off is the tilt of the head. Everything's very straight and flat and kind of well done. And then the head is like somebody broke her neck. And it's not really working for me. I know what you're trying to do with it, or at least I think I know what you're trying to do with it. I think you're trying to make her cock her head in kind of a challenging or seductive way. And, you know, like, look what I can do, or, you know, watch out, I'm a sexy witch. But it's not working. Because if I do this, it's extremely skewed. Now, I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna make her neck a little on the long side. Get my Parmigiano on. If anyone went to art school and is an intelligent fucking idiot like me. Let's see. Alright, so remember what I said about the lines making people old? Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Let's turn this into more of a form than a line. Let's knock this back a bit. Let's knock that way back. Let's detense those muscles. Now, whereas I said the last piece needed darker skin because it was Indian, I feel like this piece needs lighter skin because it's Japanese. So, how's that? I like the headdress. I want to see more of the gold. Like all this, like all this. I think you could have more of the hair back here, like it's been wrapped back. This is one of those things where I think breaking reference is actually, because you do have to break your reference to make an exciting design. You have to play to the rules and then choose a few to break to make it your own. I feel like having the hair falling behind her, like it's up and then over, would add a lot more weight to the head because it's relatively small. Which one? Oh god. I did crit J-Mobs and I can't remember what I said. Making sure the center of her forehead is in the center of her forehead. Now that you've drawn it, you know, more upward, you can see where all the skews are happening. Thickening the eyebrows a bit. Not too much. Just enough that we can see it on the far side over there. Oh. J-Mob, I might have destroyed you. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, buddy. Listen, buddy. I'm sorry. Bud. Apologize. Yeah, again, it's not going to be perfect. I'm just doing quick stuff. Head's still too small. That does look kind of funny, though. Keep doing that. Okay. So, I need to very quickly grab this and might be too big now. No, it's looking okay. One thing, the taper on this shoulder over here is way too low. Think of all the layers she's wearing and think of how thick a fox fur is. You know what I mean? Bump that up significantly. Look at how high it comes on the other side. Bring this up. Show that sleeve going in. Add some texture to that. You know, we can see it in the tails down there. I want to see the hair in here too. And then if this is wrapping around the other side, you know, I want to see some of that wrap back there too. So the ribbon's not just shooting out of her. In terms of the ribbon, cool visual device. I'm not going to fault you on it. I like what it's doing. You should show where it is on her body, though. One thing you might not have realized is that you've drawn this ribbon going everywhere, but you haven't shown it where it attaches on the body. I have no idea where it's coming from. So it looks like there's red string tied around her arms. Easy fix. Just thicken it and make it very apparent that this is the ribbon. Have it catching the light the same way the ribbon is. Boom, problem solved. You have gold trim. This is what I was talking about earlier, where all the colors are in one part of the piece and it unbalances it. Something about the bottom was really bothering me, and it's that your cloak is gold trimmed everywhere except the bottom. And if a cloak is going to be trimmed, then all the edges of it are usually trimmed. Usually. So this is going to make the bottom of her dress really apparent where it stands out from the ground, whereas before it was just kind of sinking into the ground. So this should help. Where the banding is, you can have it catching light, as gold cloth tends to do. You've got these cool kind of fox designs in here. I actually think you should play with them more. That's one of my That could have been my favorite part of this piece if they were brighter, and if you had done more with, you know, the foxy kind of curves. Like, where's the tails? I'm gonna add a tail swooping down here, just because they're very dull. If you've got gold woven into this dress, then I would assume that that same gold could be used to flesh out parts of these foxes, gold and silver. So, like, I barely saw the fox. It almost wasn't even there for me because of how dull the colors were. So, you know, stitch out the fur in like a pattern with silver and gold. Make them brighter. And don't just have them on one side. Have another one over here coming down, making a narrative like it's going for the other one's tail or something. I mean, you could even throw the I'm an intelligent artist who went to art school thing and make it so one fox is going after the other fox's tail while it isn't looking. Two creatures from the same breed, and one's about to kill the other because it's going to be caught unaware. And that's a metaphor for who Morgane is in the story. You know, it's like you can put stuff that blunt into the costume if you have an opportunity like stitch work in a royal dress. You know, it's like that's a great opportunity to really force narrative into it. This is a sister fox going after her brother, and it's gonna devour it. It's gonna bite it when it's turned away. You know, that's fine. But yeah, if you have a fox over here stitched in, I want to see another fox on the other side. I want to. Looks like your dress is hemmed with fur as well, so that means on the bottom you've got to add some fur. Do that real quick. Yeah, just remember uniform design. If something's hemmed everywhere and it's not hemmed there in one spot, that's where the eye is going to feel awkward because you've balanced everything else out but that part. If there's fur lining on the, you know, all the ends of a dress and you choose to omit one part, that's where the eye is going to feel weird because it should be there. It's a balance issue. It's visual balance. Okay, so the next thing, the head is very skewed. I do want you to redo the face. I'm not going to take the time to do it myself because it would take a while. And I have to get through this so I can get back to doing my work. But people always get screwed on these because I end up painting over the first 5 and then skipping through the rest. Get the shaft. Sorry. This backhand has the same problem I mentioned before where it's tucked in behind the body and then jackknifing out at a crazy angle. It's like, makes no sense having that. It would have been, actually I'll show you what would have been better. It's a major change, but I do want to show you what I'm thinking. I think what you should have done is completely erased this. Sorry. And then had a very, because this whole piece is about delicacy. Everything she's wearing is extremely curvaceous and flowing and delicate. So having that hand jackknifing behind her at that crazy diagonal all of a sudden, it just bothered me. It didn't seem in tune with the rest of the piece. Let's see. I think something like this would have been better suited. Her arm's too long now, but... And then you'd have the gold coming down on the side, and then the inside of the sleeve over here. Some cool shadow stuff. Some fur sticking out. This feels a lot more organic to your design. It doesn't interrupt it with a sudden, you know, straight line shooting out of the body. You can have have it be a curve, you know what I mean? Having that dress wrap around the arm adds a lot more flow. Because, you know, these ribbons, the whole piece is about this ribbon you've wrapped around it. You want to emphasize these. I've covered up a lot of your ribbons, so I'm going to extend this one to make up for it. When do I stream toots and me working from scratch? Not often, because all my work is NDA. I can't share it. It's client work. So I don't get a chance to much anymore. But I don't have a set time. You just have to add me on Twitter. And if I say that I'm streaming, I will be streaming. So I just noticed you had a sleeve inside, so I'm adding the white. Some fur. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this works better. Feel free to disagree. You've got these, I think the magic ball on this hand is a little distracting. I can't really see the hand anymore. An easy thing to do would be, because the magic is a light source, darken the fingers a bit so I can see it. That's what would happen if the hands were being backlit. They'd be a little darker, they'd be a little redder because the light would be lighting up the blood inside the hand. And then on this other hand, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be lightning, or you could easily have it kind of coming out of her arm and creating those little ball things you had designed. So yeah, I feel like this is a better solution than the other one. I'm not going to draw the hand and get into crazy detail. I'm just not gonna, brah. Sorry. I just don't have time. I just don't have time for this. Okay? But yeah. Let's see here. I hope that made sense. The last thing, these foxes are very golden everywhere. I would add some shadow as they turn underneath themselves. You know, just make them look like forms instead of round mac and cheese wedges on her shoulders. But yeah, you gotta redo the face. I don't have time to fix that. Now, the last thing, the very last thing, is that she doesn't look particularly evil. She could very quickly. All you'd have to do, and this is like Evil 101. Evil 101. Take the whites of their eyes and make them big diagonals, so they look like evil foxes. This is like Disney cartoon evil, but it works. And then kick up these eyebrows. Kick up these eyebrows. I don't want to make it too over the top, but she doesn't look evil yet. You need to give me more to show me that she is in fact someone who's evil. Okay. Now, another thing. This is kind of small, but I'm going to fix it anyway. Because we've rotated the head, a bunch of the problems with the head are now jumping out. One of them is that the crown isn't actually centered on her face. It's still not centered, but it's better than it was. You're going to have to change the angle of the circle. Taper it down a bit. You know, make it more of an ellipse. Like that. Hope that helps, buddy. Sorry, having a rough night. Starting to get angry. Starting to get angry. See, if I didn't have client work, I could just paint over people's stuff and talk all day. I'd love to. I love doing this. I really do. I love doing paint overs. I just don't have time. Which is why from now on, if you want my help, I'm charging $69.95. Just kidding. It's not happening yet. Soon enough. Yeah, anyway, I've done enough on this one. Let me zoom out. There you go. Let me delete this layer. Merge the other 2, 3. And yeah, do you see the difference that makes? Those few things. She's resting on the ground better. The hand feels a lot more natural than it was just sticking out of her. The face is bigger and more balanced, but it still needs work. Hope that helps, bud. You're a great guy. You're a great guy. I want to see more from you. More beauty. Oh, how could I forget? Hold on. One huge thing. You got this big red thing and it's empty, and then you've got another red thing going over it. That's a no-no. This is a great opportunity to put some embroidery on that. If everything else is embroidered, why wouldn't this thing be? I'm just gonna bullshit some designs. You get the idea. Bruh, you get the idea, okay? There we go. Hope that helps. All right. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're not talking about the Mordreds yet. This is a Merlin, and I love your Merlin. Hmm. 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 I wasn't going to talk about any other ones. I'll talk about this Merlin real quick. We're going to have a big wrap-up stream that's going to last fucking forever after the Mordreds are done. I'm going to talk about everybody's everything. It's going to be like a super stream. So I'll come back to this. I love this, though. Taking some big risks. It's paying off. Actually, I'm going to wait. I was going to talk about it, but it's not fair if I do. Talked about that already. Talked about these. Oh, right, this one. You redid this because I told you to redo it. And it looks so much better. This is looking great. You have one of the most successful sets out of the whole class because you did the thing that no one else is really trying to do, and you put the character in an environment so they become illustrations and not just character designs. Your environments are working extremely well. Piece to piece to piece, they've been getting better. Your Mordred one is the best one yet. This one was the second best. Your Arthur was the weakest. So you're learning how to put them in environments better every single time you move forward, which is what you want. But this is looking great. This looks infinitely better than the other one did. Because you redid that moon. I'm a little concerned. It's not even a big deal. I can't tell if the tilt of her body is a little too extreme. It might not be. I feel like a little more weight over here just to balance that tilt a little bit more would help a lot. That's really it. I'm really happy with the design otherwise. You used pretty much all the crits I gave you last time, so I don't really have to give you any more crits this time, so thank you. One thing, and this is probably the only thing, if she's got a light inside the skull, there would be glow coming out of the eyes and the nose. Which I actually think makes it look cooler. It's not just correct. It looks interesting. A lot more silhouette work on the features of the skull. A lot more darks. I know it's catching light, but just to accent that light that's inside of it, you want to give it some more darks. But yeah. The only other thing I might do in some areas of your piece, this is like me nitpicking because I think this is becoming a really successful portfolio piece. In some areas, I would say it could use a punch of color. It's sinking into gray in some areas, as it should because of the lighting, but that's still not an excuse for, like, you know, a boring fire. You know, that fire should be much brighter, much more fiery orange color, you know what I mean? That should really be very warm. And the light from it should be very warm too. You know, because the piece is primarily blue because of the dark and the moonlight. So I'm not, this isn't going to be super accurate. I'm just dotting it in. But if I take an orange you know, this kind of warm orange. And I make the lights from that lamp catching on the costume in certain places as they would be. The complementary colors are going to do all the work for you. And they're going to add a little bit more life to the piece. Just in terms of the color. And again, it's not a super bright flame, so it's not going to catch all over the place. But, yeah. Just little bits here and there. Just to pop this area out. The only other thing, she's got cleavage, but it's kind of invisible. And I feel horrible doing this. I don't want to do this. This isn't the kind of crit I want to give you. I'm sorry. You deserve better. You deserve better, man. I'm gonna put, she's turned to the side, so this boob's gonna be in the front. This boob's gonna be in the back. The cleavage is there for sex appeal. Makes no sense in the culture, but I know why you did it, and it works. So, might as well go the extra mile and make sure that the light and the shape of the tits is accurate, so that when 13-year-olds play the video game that you designed this for, they can all pop raging boners. Talk about how hot the evil, oh dude, that evil chick's so fucking hot. There you go. Yeah, those are some hard nipples. She's in a very cold place. But you know, this fur has weight and it sticks out, so a little bit of a cast shadow. Cast shadow over here. You know, just adding some form to the breasts is really all I'm talking about. But yeah. See, now they're visible. I made the line a little too stark. But you get the idea. So there you go. There's my crit. It's pretty minor. You listened to almost everything I said last time, so I don't really have a lot to say. There you go. Hope that makes sense. I don't know what you just linked in the chat. I'm gonna move this over here and click on it so I don't get accidentally porned on my stream and then deleted. There it is. That's the one. But yeah, I think this is hold on. This is Zip. No, it's P10. Whoops. Zip did the Merlin I like. That's why I was confused. This is looking particularly good, buddy. Particularly good. Some of the best stuff in the class so far. You've been listening to every piece of advice along the way, and it's really starting to pay off. It's a good job. I'm gonna move on. Oh. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Talked about that one. We're not doing the Mordreds. It's Milan. Hey, buddy. Who else we got? Talked about these. Talked about these. Didn't talk about that yet. Okay. It's Milan. Milan. This is great. Big step up from your previous two. So, in your first Merlin, in your Arthur one, you were just getting the basics. You kind of scrapped it because we decided that you should move on, try new things. So then you played with line a lot and clarity by doing clean line drawing and rendering on the Merlin. And now with the Morgane, you are playing with rendering and color and light. So you're biting off a lot of big things at once, and you're doing a pretty successful job of it. Few things. Let's see. I'm not going to fault you too much on these few things. The design looks good. The pose is interesting. The lighting is very cool. You could do more with the fire lighting, but I know this is your first time trying something like this, so I'm not going to fault you too much on it. Yeah, this is your best one so far, easily. This trumps your Arthur and your Merlin quite well. The only thing I would maybe work on if you're going to push this to finish is it gets a little bulky in some spots. Twinkins, I'll get to it. Don't worry about it. This is my mentoring thing. I'll get to it, buddy. This is like huge. I would tone that down. The shape of that armlet was just like really bulbous. It's I'm going to talk about the character first, guys, and then the spell, because it's not about the spell, it's about the character. This shoulder should be here, and then the arm should come out of it. It's a little fat in the wrong places. This is a fairly common thing that's happening with this piece, where as you start rendering, your lines get a little wider than they were. There's a little bit of bleed, and the more you render it, the more they start expanding. And eventually, it just looks a little chubby in certain places where you didn't intend it to be. So, address that as best I can. But see, just that right there on that arm, it's like, Again, I'm doing this quick, so there's going to be a couple mistakes. Up here, now this is the first red flag that I'm seeing. You have elbow, arm, and the elbow. It's like over there. Do you see that? It's turned so far away from us. The forearm becomes like huge. It just looks very strange. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna bring this down. And again, I know you shot reference. This might be one of those things where you think you're being correct because it's in the reference, but you're tapering it wrong or something. It's just it's a little too long. And then, I think what was happening is the upper arm was coming towards us, but you've painted it flat, so it makes it look stunted. That happens a lot. You don't get the taper down, so it looks like it's flat. But here's the reason I'm making them wide. If her arm's up and there's this much empty space around her arm on the little armlet, gravity means that it would slip down. So it has to be tighter to make sense. Having it loose while her arm is up in the air makes no sense because it would have fallen down. It's like if I drew, like, if I drew somebody's waist right here, and here's their belly button, and here's their, you know, here's their pecs and their arms and their neck, and then I drew their pants like this. Why are their pants like that? Gravity would make them fall down. You know what I mean? Pants are supposed to be tight around the waist, like that. Whoops. Boop, boop. But yeah, I think you gotta. I'm not gonna really do it. It's gonna take too long for me to fix all of it. This arm in particular, this arm looks okay. It's a little too long in the forearm, but this arm over here is pretty broken. So I think you need to either chop up and move around this till it looks right and then finish painting it, or redo it. This arm just needs to be fixed. You know, it needs to be, you need to show us the muscles. Because right now you're rendering it as if I took a piece of clay and I made this shape. That's how you're painting the arm, but it's not. It's a cylinder that's doing this, and then another cylinder here that's coming forward. That's the thing. You got to paint the arms as cylinders, not as a big flat noodle shape. Does that make sense, the difference between these two? Hope that makes sense. Let's see. The face is looking pretty good. There's some things you could fix on it. I'm not going to fault too much of it. Yeah, I take 3 students at a time. I pick them not based on how good they are. I pick them based on the 3 people I think I can help the most with my specific skill set. That's how I try to do it, because I don't want to be an elitist. I try to look for 3 people that I respond to. But other people can follow along, and I'll definitely talk about their work. They might not get a critique every time, but yeah, like I've already critted like 6 people today. You know what I mean? Like I only took 3 students though. Not gonna do too much to the face. I just think we should see more of the other side of it. It was disappearing a little bit, especially the eye was sinking back in a really weird way. I want to see more of that brow. I want to see more of that brow. You're doing a common thing that everybody does. You're over rendering the breasts because they're fun to paint. Careful. Putting too much work into the breasts because they're fun. Simplify those breasts. They're just 2 round circles. 2 orbs hanging. I know they're fun to paint. I know I struggled with it too. I used to draw the blinds when my parents went out, and I'd lay down in bed and I'd just paint tits. And then one day my mom walked in on me and I was painting breasts. And she was like, "No, son of mine, I am ashamed." And I was like, "But mom, they're so fun to paint." And she went, "I don't want to hear it. If your grandfather had caught me painting breasts, he would have whipped the daylights out of me." I had to go to counseling. I know they're fun to paint, brah, but... And the lighting is off on them. They should be getting most of their light from the fire. They seemed really white and blue, but they're turned towards the fireball. So they should be painted entirely with shades of red. Hope that makes sense. This blue light is coming from behind and behind her and below her. It's up and behind. No part of the breast is going to catch that light. It's entirely going to be lit by the fire. You see how confusing that blue light was? The way you painted the breasts here, I just want to show this. For that light to be there, it would have to be up here, pointing down at them. Or over here, pointing down at them. But the blue light is clearly from the back of her, somewhere over here, doing this. So how did it get on the breasts? Makes no sense. So there you go. Yeah, but that's the thing, is that if it's moonlight, why is it only catching on the breasts? It's not catching on her. This is the thing that I just want to explain. If that's the case, and the light is coming down and it's moonlight, then, because of universal lighting, the light should also be oops. Should also be here. Should also be on her nose. It should be above the eye. It should be on her hair. It should be on this metal. It should be on this arm. You know what I mean? Every surface pointing towards the moon should have it, if it's moonlight. More firelight, PLZ, in the hair to make that head pop out more. No blue. No blue here either. The face is turning towards the fire. None of that blue light's gonna catch. You're doing a cool thing with the blue light, and I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make the form turn by adding cool temperature to one side and warm temperature to the other. And that is true, but not that extreme. That neon blue light would not in any way reach her face with her hair, that headdress, and a scarf blocking it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. You can still make it cooler in the shadows, but it can't be neon blue. It can just be a bluer shade of red. That's all I'm trying to say, dude. But anyway, those are the big things I want you to change. For now, I'm going to give you another crit when you change those things. The only other thing I'm going to mention is that the fire needs work, because of how good this all looks. The fire's all kind of one value, and that's not how it works. There would be lots of little spiraling bits in here, and lots of darker yellows and reds, especially down on the ground. There would be a lot more stuff like this, you know. I'm just throwing in random specs, but the fire would need as much attention as the character. The core of the fire is the brightest, and then around it would have to be this very swirling kind of, you know, the stuff back here shouldn't be white. It should be like a yellow, like a bright yellow. Because if there's too much white, it flattens the piece. White is an extreme color, the same way black is an extreme color. Too much white and you flatten your piece out. Too much black, you flatten your piece out. Save white for the most intense areas. The core of the fire. But yeah, I'm just dashing stuff in real quick. But, yeah, those are my initial crits. You gotta fix the arms. We'll talk more about the other stuff later. Like, there's too much blue in her belly. this middle shade, this dark, would go almost all the way to the edge, the same way it did with the arm. If I was to do it real quick, you know, like it would come over like this. Hope that makes sense. The same way you kind of painted how the light tapers on the arm, it would be similar. But yeah, good implement of the design. This is a much better rendering job than your Merlin. You're really, really playing with the rendering and it looks good. But yeah. Keep going, buddy. Keep pushing that rendering. It's looking really good. Definitely your cleanest render so far. Alright, I'm really pressed for time now, so I'm gonna go into asshole mode. Let's see. Okay, same thing I talked about last time. The colors are like she's standing in a funhouse with a black light. It's still really, really grayed out, and I don't know where these colors are coming from. I just don't know where they're coming from. They're very, very pastel and very, very neon. The design's looking better. It's looking much better than it was. I am happy about that. But your anatomy, I know the anatomy, we talked about it last time, it was a big problem. One of the big things that I talked about last time was the waistline. It's still an issue. Let me just, I'm not even going to paint it for you, I'm just going to show you what's already there with a bright yellow. So here's her head, here's her neck, here's her shoulders would, you know, if her head's there and the shoulders are typically 3 heads wide, then those should be the shoulders. Here's the hands, here's the elbow. So already her forearms are very, very long. Okay, here's where the nipples are. You've shown that based on how the light works, which looks okay. Underside of the breast. But then the waist is like here, but look how thin it is. You see what I mean? It's like, and then there's this. See how thin and awkward the character looks? If this were the character's body, it would look fine. But she's wearing 4 layers of clothes. It's the same thing I always talk about. This is an accurate drawing of the body, okay? Except the waist is too low. The waist should be about here. But, yeah, the waist should be a little bit higher, and the hips should be a little bit higher. That's the big thing. Higher, higher. But she's wearing tons of layers, so if the waist was here, with all those dresses on, it should be out there. Have you seen somebody wear a ball gown? They're fucking huge. You know what I mean? Like, it can be tight around the waist because it's very, very pinched because of corsets and things. But especially the lower part of the dress needs to come out dramatically. There's no weight to the clothing. And then the other thing that happens is because of how thin the body is, because you basically drew the clothes on top of a naked body instead of the person wearing them, when you add these massive shoulders, it makes the body look even smaller. That's why this piece looks so skewed and weird. It's the smallness of the body with the hugeness of the clothes. So, very quickly, have the dress come out to like here, and then here, and then here, here, here. Have the waist come out a bit. And then I would sink this in the back. I would have the shoulders very puffy, like you have them. But then I would have the cape start from not from the edge of the shoulders. You know what I mean? So if I draw it up in the corner, have the puff do this, like a mantle, and then have the cape come down from the middle. Don't have the cape come down from the sides like that. It makes no sense. So have the black come down from here, bring this red in, so it's less black, and have the black kind of mimicking the shape of her body. So it's going to be a draping kind of curve to accentuate the feminine parts and not make her look fat. Because right now, the coat's just making her look fat. Which doesn't make sense because of how thin the body looks. So you gotta fatten the body and thin the cloak. You did the right things in the opposite places. See that? Bring that up too. Bring that waist up. But yeah. There you go. Hope that makes sense. Well, Forrest, I wouldn't do it because the class is almost over. We're doing the last assignment right now. I would wait for the next class, which is not going to be the same as this. It's going to be a totally different lesson plan with totally different focus. Let's see. Okay. This is looking pretty good, Tatis. Some of the stuff I mentioned last time I still think you can work on. So I'm just going to say it again real quick. The scales are all still different sizes. You need to really draw them in and make sure they're all the same size. And you did make them curve better, but like the ones on the bottom are really small, and then the ones up top are huge. It's like you need to make them more uniform. I know that's tedious, but hey, that's a good thing. That means I'm nitpicking. You know, you'd see the top ones here. Look at how equidistant the rest of them are. You'd see a top layer poking through up here. You know what I mean? That's part of the reason why they look huge, is because they don't have ones above them interrupting them. So, you know, do that. The costume looks really good. The rendering is better than you have on the other ones too. It looks very nice. The snake's looking better. Digging it. I still think you can make the face look more Egyptian. But that's really about it. I like it. I like how it came out. This hand here, too, could be a little bigger and less blocky. I know you have the thumb kind of going behind her waist, but just, you know, make it wider. Hands are, you know, they cover the whole face when you open them up. I'm going to look like shit when I turn my webcam on, but it's fine. Hi. Hand, face. Hands are big things. So there you go. So there you go. Oh, hold on. It's getting cold in here. I gotta put my shirt on. My other shirt. I'm in Massachusetts of the United States, and in the winter it gets very cold, and my apartment is not insulated, so it's fucking freezing, I guess would be the best way to put it. Feel much better now. It's my messy studio behind me. All kinds of lights and boards. I gotta cut this. It's getting a little too long. A little too long. I can put it all the way up behind my ear now. All the way up behind my ear. Horrible. But yeah, it's looking good, Tatis. Just finish those, and it's looking good. Thomas. Ho ho ho. Ho ho. Ho ho. I didn't say the hands are bigger than the face. I said the hands cover the surface area of the facial features. This is what I'm saying. See my face? My hand covers the forehead all the way down to the chin. Top of the middle finger is where the hair begins. Bottom of the palm, it's where my chin is. Just keep that in mind. Thomas, this is one of your strongest pieces, but her face still looks like an ogre. I love you, Thomas. One thing, you added this creepy green in the background, and I love it. And I kind of wish it was like doing creepy green shit. You know that scene in Return of the King when they're walking through the ghost place, and Gimli's like, "Oh, ghosts," and Legolas is like, "They are stupid elf shit." But then all the smoke comes up, and they make like little hands and things, and they kind of wrap around the characters, and they come in front of them sometimes like this. You know, they're kind of like accentuating them and making this cool, creepy atmosphere, kind of snaking around them. You added that green, and it looks so good. I just want you to do more with it. And then it can echo the fucking lightning snake, so that'll be cool. Okay, so let's get into it. This looks great, but it can look greater, so let's do it. Again, if everything's embroidered but one part, the eye goes to it and it feels awkward. So if the sleeves and the thing in the middle are embroidered, this should be embroidered too. See that? It should be the same pattern and the same kinds of stuff as the other parts. So I'm just going to mock it in real quick. Same with down here, where it's showing through. This thing is made of light, which is cool, and I get it. But it needs a little more tone, a little more value. It needs, let me turn the opacity down on this layer. It needs to be a little darker in the middle so the glow reads on the edges. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, just needs to be darker in the middle so the glow reads better on the sides. I just took a blue, make sure it's a very saturated blue, like there. Set it to a multiply layer or an overlay, and just you know, dabble it in the areas where it's a little too white. Doesn't need to be everywhere, just needs to be in areas where, because you know, it's casting a glow on the sides, so if you're not careful, it can make a huge white shape, and that's not what you want. You want it to have a little bit of value range, even though it's not a ton. So if I duplicate this layer now, that's too much. But I set it to overlay to get some vibrance out of it, a little bit of blue color. Yeah. And then, you know, do a normal layer on top. You can select that glow from the sides And then you can just kind of chisel a few scales here and there on top of that blue that you've laid in as a core. Don't do big areas of it or you're undoing all the work you just did, but you know, you can just pick a scale here and there out of that blue so it doesn't look so ordinary. But yeah, these are all minor things, but they are important. I would make the eyes a tiny bit bigger, and I would have them a little more, just, you know, more apparent, so when we zoom out, they really show up. A little bit of darker value in here just to show the edge of the snake and that whisker. Not a ton. See, it's a very small difference in value, but you need it to clearly show the contour of the snake. Chiseling. Chiseling, brah. Yeah. Let's see. Now, the big thing, really, oh, by the way, really nice with that little flower. Really fixed the symmetry problem of the crown in a very elegant way. The big thing is the face. That's what's up. Let's see. I'm just going to type in geisha. And I'll go on the other screen in case a whole bunch of porn shows up. Don't want to get my stream deleted. Don't want to get it deleted. But, you know, just going to look for something that works. Let's see. Yeah, I know where you're having the trouble with this. I can see why. The white makeup kind of gets rid of the ethnic features. I'm seeing the problem now. I'm seeing it. But yeah, I'm just gonna do some quick stuff. Some quick stuff. Sure. Sure, why not? Okay. Let me get rid of these. The problem with your girl's face, as we've talked about before, is that it looks a little too manly. So, I'm going to try and fix that very quickly. And it's probably not going to work. And you're going to think I'm a hack. And then everybody's going to go, why are we even listening to this guy? What does he think he's doing? He doesn't know. So I'm seeing in both of these geishas that the makeup is on the top of the eye as well as the bottom. I'm going to use that and then taper the sides. And then I'm seeing that these kind of come up and over, and they're not really low like that. And then I'm gonna make this nose considerably smaller. I mean, I gotta give you credit though. You're not shying away from the lighting. The biggest reason this is looking strange is the lighting, but you totally went for it, and that takes balls. So good job. But it's very hard to light a face from two sides, especially a female face, and have it look natural and not strange. It's extremely hard to do, so don't feel bad about it. I'm not even sure I'm helping. Yeah, that helps. A little bit. Yeah, I was gonna put more red in the lips too. I like the black though. I'm gonna make it like a really dark red. They used to have this thing, I don't know if you guys know this. This is another random art school thing. But the old master painters used to have this thing called the moment of red. And there's a few different ways to phrase it. You might know it as something else. There might be a special Italian name for it that I don't know because I'm not smart enough. But basically, back when all the pigments looked like earth tones, everything was painted pretty much in shades of sienna, shades of umber, things like that, because those were the most, easy to get, most common paints. So what would happen is then the second most common was blue, and then they'd have a very hard time getting pure red. Pure red was a color you don't see a lot of in old master paintings ever. People's bodies are usually a combination of siennas, umbers, whites, yellows. Red is something they mixed in scarcely, and you don't see a lot of it. So to create a focal point in a piece, something they used to do a lot of in the old paintings was they did this thing called the moment of red, where one part of the painting had one thing that was very brightly red in a very important compositional area, and the eye was drawn to it because red's one of the most intense colors on the palette. It's definitely, it's warm, it's bright, it's kind of violent if you use it in the right context. So red was kind of like a trick that they'd use. It was like a magic trick, where if a piece wasn't working, they could put a moment of red in a very important spot, and it would kind of unify everything. It would go, oh, okay. If anyone knows the painting, the Raft of the Medusa, that's a good example. Look for the red in that. Try to find it. It's in a very important spot, and the piece would suffer without it. But because this is all purples and blues and then greens in the background, and there's no pure red anywhere, making it bright red would be very obvious. But if you did kind of a dark blood red on the lips, almost black, I think it helps. Both. Oh, sorry. Raft. R-A-F-T of the Medusa. Yeah. I think the big thing that was making this look masculine was that the eyes were very small and lidless, and that the nose was a little too fat. Now that I'm painting on it, I think those are really the two big things that I'm seeing. So it might not be that difficult, really. One thing I'm going to try, this might not work. I'm going to try it though. is to incorporate the crown into her face a bit more, because right now it's very on the sidelines of the design. Thomas, answer me truthfully. Did you base this crown on something you found in research, or did you make it up? I don't dislike it. I just need to know if you're pulling from something that I can look at. If you made it up, that's fine. But if it's from something, I'd like to see it. Made it up? Okay, not a problem. It's got a little bit of a balance issue. That's the only reason I'm asking. I'm going to try and fix that real quick. Something like that. I'm just kind of staring at this now. Something about the shapes are bothering me. Everything's very curvy in this piece, and this is very angular. I just want to add more curves to it. Well, I still think the crown needs something. I don't know if my solution's the best one, but trying to make it look more like the one on the waist. But I think her face is looking more feminine. I'm going to move the speculars to the insides of the eyes and not the edges, because I want the pupils to be large. I'm looking at these two girls, and I want her to be a little less cross-eyed. Okay, I'm going to move on, I think. Does all that make sense, Thomas? Thomas? I love you, buddy. Buddy, I love you. Yeah, it's looking good though, man. Keep it coming. Let me close these. I'm almost done here. I'm almost done. Okay, this one. This one has been an upward battle. Let me go find the previous. Okay, this is a new contender. This is a new contender. A new challenger. Alright, let me go back and find where I put my video up. My video is right there, so this is the one from before it. This is what I wanted to look at. I wanted to see what you changed. Well, you changed some stuff, but it's almost exactly the same. You just changed the cloth. This is a tough one. Basic things. Same thing I talked about before. The chasings. on this should be uniform, like the ones on the bottom. They should be up here as well. Basically, the big problem with this one, this is the big thing. I talked about it before too. I'm not entirely sure what culture she's from, and I'm not entirely sold on her being feminine. It could be a guy if it didn't have lipstick on. I need more of a feminine figure. But for what you have here, for the sake of critting it, doesn't need to have cleavage necessarily, but it does need to have more of a feminine shape to it. But if you're going to do patterns, make sure they're uniform. Make sure if they're on the edges, they're on all the edges. This hand is like super, super bright. The hand isn't made of fire, it's skin, so it should be darker, and it should be catching light in areas turned towards the light. Same with this one. Areas behind the hand are in shadow. The fireball won't be affecting them because of cast shadows. So you've got that. Down here you've got this. You've got the cast shadow thing going on down here. But, you know, moving it in. Face needs a lot of work. You've got gold fastenings on the colors everywhere else. I would say that the headdress needs some if it's going to fit. I don't know where the feet are. This hand is, this arm is doing the same thing. You guys like doing this jackknife thing where they're turned in kind of 3/4, the arm disappears completely, then shoots out at a straight angle. It's like 5 of you have done it. I don't get it, guys. Make this something more exciting than just a ball. Make it like a bunch of sparks that are coming into a ball and making a big one. Make it lightning, make it fire, whatever you want to do. But don't just make it a ball. Give it some character. And then, you know, if she makes magic balls or whatever, she's going to be associated with light. I'm not seeing a lot of, like, narrative design in this thing. I don't know what her, like, clan is. I don't know what animal, if there's no animal association, there's no narrative. There's no, you know, all I see is the ball of light. So going off that, I'm going to do this in the embroidery and make, like, a sun fire association kind of thing. I just need to see more informed design. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. I need to see more design that tells me something about the character. It can't just be someone who's making a fireball. I need to see the costume reinforce things about the character. Theming. That's the one. Thank you, Thomas. I was forgetting my word. Themes. I want to look at the character and know where they grew up. I want to know if they're good or bad. I want to know if they're sleeping with their brother to make an incest demon that's going to take over medieval Europe and put it back into a second Dark Age. You need to show me that. Yeah. Yeah. I saw one other one. I don't know if you guys just heard that, but that was my stomach telling me to eat. I hope you didn't hear it because it was incredibly loud and gross. But that was my stomach going like a dog that wants to come inside. My stomach is a dog. Oh, I see. I see what you did. I get it. I like this idea, but I think you could have done it better. I think the snake should have done something like this and gone behind her and then been over here, come around underneath, then over, and the tail come up and interrupted the character like that. Like a super long fucking evil snake. For one reason, and it's a reason that I've grown fond of here on the Danger Room. It's a reason that has helped build my legend probably more than any other. And it is the phallic association of a big lazy snake coming out of her crotch. Watch out. Gotta watch out for that. Gotta watch out. Penises strike when you least expect them, guys. When you're painting, you gotta be on your guard. You don't know when the dick's gonna show up, but if you're not careful, it will. It will. You're just gonna be there painting, minding your own business, then all of a sudden there's gonna be a giant phallus somewhere in your piece, and you're gonna go, whoa, 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 whoa. What? One other weird thing about this, this right here almost looks like she's pregnant. It looks like it's bulging, and I'm not sure what this thing is coming out of. So I would continue this up just to cover up that awkward part of the chest. Stomach, I guess it would be. Bring that up. That's about it. I like this design. I like the pose. The background's kind of random. The background looks like when you're sitting at a campfire in Dark Souls and everything's smoky. It looks kind of weird. I think the background could use some work, but I like what you're doing. If the snake's going to be glowing and emitting light, then I would put more around the head. You know what I mean? Make it look kind of like St. Elmo's fire. Something spectral. But yeah, I like this. So either no body behind her, or if you do make a body behind her, don't make it a big lazy dick coming out of her fly. Because that's not what you want. Let's see. A new one. Well, you're late to the party, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Your head is fucking huge in comparison to your arms and hands. This would be more appropriate. Again, for anyone who wasn't here before. This is my face. Top of my middle finger, where the hair begins. Bottom of my palm, it's where the chin is. Let's see. Things about this design I like. The layered fabric. The neck thing doing this and then exposing the breasts and then having another piece of fabric underneath it and then re-tapering at the bottom. That all looks really cool. This kind of lotus design in the middle isn't really repeated anywhere except the crown. I would like to see it in more places. Everybody say it with me now. Embroidery. It's the universal crit. Give me some more design. Give me some more narrative. If she's going to be flower patterned, add some trim. Show me some of that. Let's see. She's running into another common problem. This is a problem that I talk about a lot on here. She is a rectangle. A perfect rectangle. Look at that. Look at that. That's something you want to watch out for. It's something a lot of people do. They draw the body straight up and down, and it really kills the action and the weight of the piece. Triangles are a much more powerful shape than a big skinny rectangle, and it's the way things looked. If you go back and look at gowns and things, they fall wider at the bottom, and they look much more impressive because of that. So let's pop this shoulder out a bit more because it's slouching a bit. Looks like you've got your grayscale colors pretty well handled. They're still a little desaturated. I think you should do more direct color painting on top of them, but they look pretty vibrant. Looks like you're going for kind of a Jason Chan thing, which is cool, but just a little more color would be nice. This is cool. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the costume, let's see. No, too vaginal. Too vaginal, even though it is a flower. Let's see, what else? I like the sleeves going past the arms idea. I think you can keep that. I mean, even though it is a pretty great excuse to avoid painting a hand. So I'm going to fault you on that. This bounce light back here doesn't really make sense to me because it's not catching anywhere else. It just seems like an excuse to paint bounce light. So I'm going to give more weight to her back and curve in the hips a bit more down here. How do you make something evil without adding skulls? You add fangs, obviously, idiot. God. It's sad, you know? It's sad that you don't know that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the colors. So, the most obvious thing you could do is add red and be like, oh, it's like blood, blah, but we're not going to do that. Because fuck that. I think what you should do is play off the opposite with Arthur because we are doing characters from Arthurian legend redesigned in another culture. So, even though I'm so sick of talking about it, sorry, this class has gone on for quite a long time. You guys are all doing really good stuff, but it's about to come to an end. And I will be relieved to not have to talk about Arthurian myths on here again and sound like the king of the losers. The guy on the island of losers that was given a crown and told to rule upon high. So, here we go. I've widened it out a bit like we did in the big sketch just for perspective. If we're going to be talking about opposites, then whereas Arthur is associated with the sun, I think with the colors you've chosen, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to say that she should be associated with the moon. So if you're going to do any trimming, any theming, any patterning, I would do it in silver, and I would keep the floral stuff, but I would make it very nighttime colors. I would make her kind of the looming shadow theme. So, you know. But yeah, I would add more to the design, as I always do. That's like a crit that I've given everybody. Is just don't make it too basic. You know what I mean? I'm going to add a little silver chain around the waist here. I'm going to add some silver trimming. Going to add a little pendant hanging between the breasts. I'm going to put a silver lining in it and a blue stone. I'm also going to do an opening flower in the headdress. This is very low resolution, so bear with me. I'm going to do the kind of opened petals with one in the center. That kind of thing, pointing down, catching some light. But yeah, I mean, this design's okay. I just think it needs more stuff in it to generate interest. You know, she's supposed to be rich. It's looking good though. I don't think you're too far off. But yeah, that's basically my crit for that. I'm done. So I'm gonna talk about Mordred real quick. Yeah, the boobs are off. I guess I'll talk about boobs again before I start. Boobs are off. Cleavage wouldn't begin that high, number one. Come on. What are you thinking? What do you, we'd see just a little bit, like that. Now, if you wanted to show more cleavage, you'd have to drop this down to like here, which might actually be a good idea. And then you could show us a considerably higher amount of boobage. All right? If you wanted to do that. And I like the moment of red above the eyes. Looks really good. So, I already talked about Mordred on the forum. So, I'm just gonna grab this. Where did I put it? On like page 18 or something? My stomach's making all kinds of noises. I should have eaten foods. This is great entertainment right now. It's me strolling through my own class looking for something I wrote the other day because I forgot. Prime time. Prime time, as I like to call it. There we go. There you go. Mordred. Okay, so basically, you guys have all read this. I'm just going to go through it real quick. Here's the last character. He's your final exam. You're going to pull from all the other three you've done so far. Mordred is Arthur's bastard, inbred son with his sister Morgane. So he's going to have aspects of both of those characters as very prominent themes in his design. He's a villain. He has to be clearly evil. He's the most evil character in the story. He has to either be scheming, powerful, or just evil. You have to show me something that makes him look like a bad guy. In some versions, Mordred is a young man or a boy. In other versions, he's grown and enhanced in age through magic. So you can either make him a man, or you can make him a little boy. That's the thing, is like, you can go either way. I know all of you guys are making him a man, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but he could be a kid if you wanted to do that, wearing armor and stuff. Other people have done it before with that character, and you could have some cool stuff come out of it if you wanted to. Basically, the most important stuff with him is that he has a poser stance that shows that he's either evil, powerful, or has like an ability to impose intimidation on people. His stance and his pose need to look intimidating and powerful. He needs to have thematic ties to Arthur in his design as well as Morgane, but if they're tied to Arthur, they need to be clearly warped or twisted. He can't look like a hero. He can't have the exact same sigil and stuff like that. He needs to look like a perversion of Arthur, because that's what the archetype is for him. It's a perversion of the justice kind of thing. The connection of the Mother Morgane, you guys can do whatever you want with that. Basically, she's a sorceress and a magician, and she's evil, and she uses her powers to enhance Mordred's strength and reign. So if you want to tie him to her magic or her design, or if you gave her a sigil, if you want to repeat it on him, all those things are fair game. Similar color palettes, similar facial features, whatever you guys want to do for her, that's great. But basically, the last thing, if anyone's unfamiliar with the Arthur myth, which I'm sure most of you guys know all about it, but if you're not, I'm just going to throw this out there real quick, something to think about in your design. Mordred is supposed to be the polar opposite of Arthur, and because of that, they cancel each other out. At the end of the story, they kill one another at the same time. Arthur stabs him through the chest. Mordred stabs Arthur through the chest. They both die. And that's the end of it. All the evil people are gone, all the good people are gone, and the country is kind of left in a state of neutrality again. But that's the thing, is that they're two sides of the same coin. It's that old phrase, but that's what they are. So when you're designing them, keep it in mind that they are equals, but they're on complete opposite sides of the spectrum, and one is a perversion of the other. Important symbols Mordred could have. As far as I know, Mordred didn't have a sigil. I mean, his dad's was the dragon. I'm sure he can draw ties to that. Lots of people have done that before. So basically, the theme for him, he's got to be evil, he's got to be magical, stuff like that. And all the, just as an example answer to the question, in all the British versions of King Arthur, Mordred is usually associated with pagan ideology. He's associated with, like, the horned god, or he's associated with, like, witchcraft, or he has, symbols on him that have the old ways, and that's implied as the opposite of Christianity, because Arthur was a Christian king. It's not really accurate, but that's how they usually portray him, is like someone of the old gods coming to smite the justice of Christ, or whatever. So keep that in mind when you're designing him. There's really no standard for him, because, that's what he is. He's just kind of this evil thing that came from two sides of the argument, and there's no, like, established, this is his sign, this is his banner, this is whatever. So you can have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of freedom. In terms of the class, I'm going to give you till next Sunday to have a tight sketch with colors for Mordred. Most of you already have your drawing down. I want to see the drawing and the colors done by next week. And then I'm going to give you, let's see, that's going to be like, okay. Then you're going to finish them, but I'm going to give you extra time to wrap up anything else that you had done in the class that you want to push farther. So we got a couple more weeks. But if you're ahead on the Mordred, go back and touch up the old ones you did if you didn't get a chance. Because at the very end of the class, we're going to look at everybody's progress, see how they were when they started versus where they ended, stuff you learned, stuff you wish you had done better, stuff like that. It'll be a big conversation. But, sorry if my voice is kind of shaking. It's very cold here. But, yeah, so good job, everybody. I'll be around. We're having an interview this week with Anthony Jones. If anyone hasn't heard about that, check out the Daggers forums. There's a question submission thread under important events. If you have questions for Anthony Jones, Robot Pencil, it's going to be a cool interview. He's a great guy. It's going to be fun. So post him there. And good luck. Good stream, and bye. Take care.